look behind me. Na 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 na. I'll keep going, nothing can stop me. Na 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 na.
This is the single biggest principle. And it bothers me that people are very careful with their money. The public, when they buy a refrigerator, they get consumer reports. They buy a microwave oven, they do that. They ask people what's the best kind of radar range or what kind of car to buy. They do research on apartments. When they go on a trip to Wyoming, they get the mobile travel guide, or California. When they go to Europe, they get the Michelin travel guide. People will hear a tip on a bus on some stock, and they'll put half their life savings in it before sunset, and they wonder why they lose money in the stock market. And when they lose money, they blame it on the institutions and program trading. That is garbage. They didn't do any research. They bought a piece of junk. They didn't look at the balance sheet, and that's what you get for it. And that's what we were being driven to, and it's self-fulfilling. The public does terrible investing, and they say they don't have a chance. It's because that's the way they're acting. I'm trying to convince people there is a method. There are reasons for stocks.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this weird and wacky episode where, because of technical difficulties yesterday, I'm doing it from a different spot than usual. The problem should be resolved by Saturday, and I should have my normal spot as usual, but I kind of wanted to get this out rather than waiting for Saturday because I had already had plans to deal with having the normal crew, the oil and gas crew, and all the people that we've had on before to talk about Brent Franklin and some of the stuff that they've been looking at that I haven't had time with. So Saturday, hopefully, I'll get to sit down, look over it more thoroughly than I have been, and actually, assess things. But speaking of that, before we get into the GameStop stuff, call this a teaser for Saturday night, but I just can't help but there's been a little bit of the thing on X. This Brent Franklin account, I have been back and forth on whether this was actually Brent or not, but I was sent this before the live stream started. Hey, Noisy, there you have it. In case you hadn't realized, there we go, loads in there. Kyle has been having kind of a back and forth with Brent, or this Brent account that I'm pretty sure now is probably Brent. He's going over, though, the well here, this Conoco one, that I'm sure Kyle will get to talk with us Saturday on. And then we have this wonderful, wonderful video here. One sec. Let's let her rip. Is it wanting to play? It says it's playing.
So I want to show you how incompetent all of these trolls on X are.
We're struggling a little.
I just saw a post this morning from Mr. Kyle Mitchell that says, "Oh my God, Brent, y'all don't have any production. You've drilled all dry holes." Well, you posted a BML picture.
Wow, X is really just having a fit over this. What if we make it small for now?
Of a truck out on one of our Lucky Fluger leases that you say nowhere is it showing any oil. But if you type in Lucky Fluger,
it's still not wanting any of that.
And you go here and you type in 100% working interest. The evaluation from third party based on 36-month average is $3.4 million.
When he says 100% working interest, keep that in mind for our purposes here real quick. Just remember that 100% working interest. So we're working on the calculation that he owns the well 100%. No one else has... Excuse me while I turn this down a little bit because it says it's hitting the spike top of the gain there. That no one else other than him has any working interest in these wells. Just keep that in the back of your head.
Okay? You scroll down and you can see when we acquired the property that we increased the production. And this is not including the new production from the wells that we've drilled. You scroll down and you can see that there's wells here that are producing 23 barrels a day, 11 barrels a day, 11 barrels a day, and again,
which is not really that much. So to be clear, Kyle asked for him to give proof on one well in particular that he is claiming that Kyle drilled and is a dry well not producing. One well. He proceeds to give him the entire field and talks about the field's production. That's sleight of hand number one. Also, while we're here, like, he's talking about each individual wells, and you immediately get to the point that Kyle's making. Like, if you don't take the aggregate of the field and just talk about the wells are shit. 11 barrels a day, that's your big brag, that you're doing 10 barrels a day of oil. Get the fuck out of here.
It gives you all the information. By the way, the comptroller posts the gathering reports, okay? It breaks down everybody who's in here, and it says right here, BML, we did $229,000 on the last reported month. So,
for the entire field. Like, this isn't inconsistent with the stuff we already knew with Brent, that his monthly payouts are not that great.
I am curious to see what your bullshit is going to be about next, where you say...
Okay, so, needless to say, Kyle then produces the documents for that particular well. I know they're probably not great for you to see, but you can go to Kyle's page and pull this up. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit better, and let's see what we can do here. Whoop. Whoop. So, if you look in here on the document, you will actually see that, looking at it, that he doesn't even own the whole well. So, again, Shell XP is talking about generic production. It doesn't care about who has what working interest on the well. It just is showing 100% production because he put it in like that into Shell XP, which should be your key takeaway here. And then you look at the actual production, and it shows that he owns 10% of the interest on this particular well that Kyle gave us. It says, yeah. So 90% of it is going to this Dwight guy for EFF Conoco LLC, working interest, and it's 75%. So, like, he barely owns any of that production that he's bragging so much about anyway. So, well done. Well done, sir. And I'm sure Kyle can get more into the weeds and the details because, again, Brent is like a side hoe right now. He's a side quest. And our main mission objective tonight is, of course, the lawsuit against GameStop. I have said already on X that this lawsuit reminds me so much of the AMC lawsuit, and we're going to get into why. The chief reason why this lawsuit reminds me so much about the AMC one, if you recall from way back on my last channel, if you were with us in the way back in 2023 when we were covering the AMC Delaware litigation, it was a Section 242 claim. I'm used to having the mic down in front, not to my side, so it's kind of interesting having to work this way. But AMC had created APE, this split out from the common that was a preferred class of shares that had super votes but were chopped up using ADRs and used to basically dilute because AMC didn't have any more shares, with the understanding that eventually they would be converted back into common. Skip forward to December, and Adam Aaron gives Apes a wonderful Christmas present in deciding to do that conversion because he's dumped so much Ape, gotten Antar to come in, wipe out some of their debt, to basically jerry-rig the vote. Since, the Ape shares have their super voting power, and there's just that many more Apes, common shareholders got ass fucked in AMC. That got taken to the Delaware Court of Chancery, where Adam Aaron probably would have gotten his ass handed to him if it wasn't for the secret fact not secret fact that AMC was going bankrupt, or could very well have been if they had not gotten this liquidity to be able to dilute shareholders. So a settlement was reached, and the settlement was approved by the Delaware Court of Chancery. And in the wake of that, Delaware changed Section 242. And we'll take a look at that real quick before we get into this lawsuit. Section 242 was changed right here. Basically saying that so long as you don't have a provision, and that provision is the Section 2B provision, which we'll get to in a second as well. This one up here. Is it 2B? I just want to make sure real quick. Yeah, 2B. Sorry, it's been a long while. Actually, I should probably put... this is one of the times I'm so far away from the screen, I am going to wear the glasses. Normally, I can get away with it because I have my monitors like almost right here at the normal setup. They're a little bit off, so yeah, I'm a bit nearsighted. Sorry. Work with me. So that change was brought about because of Adam Aaron. Basically, what this new change was, so long as you did not have a Section B2, a Section 242 B2 exemption, which we'll get to, that you could basically change it to, instead of what had been the previous Delaware norm, where you had to have more than 50%, a majority of all shareholders had to approve a change to the company charter. Now, if you don't have that Section 242 B2 exemption, you just needed a simple majority of those that participated in the vote. In other words, a no vote does not, I mean, an abstention or failing to turn in your proxy statement is not automatically a no vote. That was the change that was made because there were a lot of these companies having liquidity problems that were these, meme stocks or retail companies. Retail investors, they just don't vote proxy statements. They get mailed their proxy statement or it gets sent by Fidelity and they throw it in the trash. They ignore it. Don't ask me why. Personally, as a shareholder, this is the one time once a year that I get a say in what the company does. Of course, I'm going to take that opportunity, but most retail investors, they see it as junk mail and they toss it in the trash and they just don't vote. So it's as good as a no vote. And so a lot of these retail companies that needed to change their charter to add more shares, to do reverse splits because they're shitcos, they were kind of caught in a bind. So Delaware changed the rules to fix that. Which brings us to this lawsuit. Nature of the action. When I first read this, I thought it was about Ryan Cohen having a pay package that was more or less like Elon Musk's. That's why I call Ryan Cohen, Timu Elon Musk. He tries so hard to be him. But I thought that's what it was about. And this was going to be a very complicated legal case because even though the shareholder in that lawsuit on Elon's pay package won, it's a complicated issue. It's something that would have to actually go to trial. Whereas this, what we're about to get into, is a straight black and white letter of the law, Section 242 claim. And it's going to be, I'd say, nigh impossible for Ryan Cohen or GameStop to win this. But let's go over the case bit by bit here. Nature of the action. A corporate CEO decides that he should be paid like a superstar. He asked his board of directors, filled with longtime colleagues and loyalists, for a $35 billion pay package. They agree, provided the CEO recuses his 9.3% voting power from a mandatory stockholder vote and expressly promise that the unaffiliated stockholders will therefore determine the outcome of the compensation package. I think that was a great legal decision because you look at those first that first paragraph, and it immediately lays out how bothersomely troublesome the legal trying to get this pay package approved would have been, and probably would have likely been sued over. You've got a pay package that's really gratuitous considering you're running a retail outlet. You have the board stacked with people that you've handpicked to be on the board, and you're basically asking for this gratuitous $3.5 billion pay package in shares. That was going to be a hard sell, and I think the board and the compensation committee told Ryan, you're going to have to not vote on this because it looks really bad. It looks like Elon Musk all over again, and Elon lost that lawsuit in Delaware. So unless you got plans to move to Texas like he did, we need to find a way to make this more palatable for the public. And credit to them, they did a pretty, I wouldn't say the greatest job, but they did something. They did something to make it not look like, he was being handed the keys to the castle. In the ensuing weeks, investors presumably let the board know that the CEO is no superstar. We'll get into my thoughts on that. Because, again, I also think this situation is very much like AMC in other ways with how the voting is going down behind the scenes. Because we have no real way to tell how the vote is going right now. We got a pretty good idea probably based on how GameStop's reacting. But we'll get to that. After delaying the planned vote for months, in late May, the board revisited its provisions conditioning and previous conditions and issues a proxy statement allowing the CEO to vote his shares, stating that the solicitation of a majority of the unaffiliated is not a condition of the $35 billion pay package. Oops. The proxy also solicits approval to more than double the number of authorized shares, adding 1.5 billion shares. To approve this charter amendment, the proxy correctly solicits the vote of a majority of all the outstanding shares, with the abstentions counting as votes against, as expressly required by the company's certificate of incorporation, which is correct. If you do go to Section 4, that is where you have the holding of those voting rights. And when we get there, we'll get to the exact language, but Section 4 on the charter is where you're going to want to be when we get there. 2 weeks later, the board apparently realized that the charter amendment needed to make the pay package effective would not receive the requisite support. Undeterred, and in a blatant violation of the company's own certificate, on June 7th, the board issued a proxy supplement purporting to condition the authorization of 1.5 billion additional shares on a majority of votes cast standard, and asserting that abstentions will not count as votes against. Delaware law is flexible, but some lines cannot be ignored and thrown out the window. Winnowing, I think whittling is what we were going for there, but okay. Your stockholder vote power with explanation and allowing 1.5 billion shares to be approved in violation of the express terms of the corporate charter is a line that cannot be crossed. Injunctive relief is required and warranted, which they didn't get. I'm surprised. They asked for injunctive relief, but I looked at this filing on docket alarm, because best of luck to you trying to get these files off of File and Serve Express. I learned from the AMC hearing that Delaware's service agent that has all of their documents and everything, it's an extortion racket. It's highway robbery. There were some documents on there that they were charging $20 to $30 a pop for a document. Like, I could get them for literal dimes, up to a max of $3 if I was getting them from the federal government. My own home state, any document from any court that you wanted is free. All you have to do is go on the website and download it. It wouldn't be a certified copy. You'd still have to go to the courthouse to get that. But, like, getting Delaware documents is an extortion racket. They know that all of the businesses are incorporated in Delaware, and you will pay for these documents. You will pay. So I have a jerry-rigged way to get them off of docket alarm, and I'll show you at the end how to do that. assuming that Docket Alarm continues to update it because they had some troubles keeping up to date with all the AMC stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. So since they haven't filed an actual injunction yet, which is critical. That should have been filed with the. In fact, let me check something here. Because again, I'm just surprised that they filed this, but there was no filing for injunctive relief. So let me double check and see if we can update that and take a look. Okay, little computer. Yeah, I'm also away from my desktop and using a laptop, so it is on the struggle bus with this live stream. Oh my goodness. Nope. Can we go? Google. Docket Alarm. For some reason, I'm being prompted to do a recaptcha, but let's see here. All right, so we're on the page. Sorry, again. We'll get into what the ramifications of injunctive relief is going to be for GameStop here, but like I said, while that's figuring itself out, we'll keep going. But I think since they didn't do an injunctive relief document, we should probably go over that's class actions. We'll get to class actions. Some of longtime viewers of the show already know what the... Oh. Well, thank you for that. I'm glad that someone is on base with that, because I was not familiar with that word, winnowing. Learn something new every day. So, for some of us, some people who have been here since day one when it comes to this live stream, you are well aware of the 4 elements for injunctive relief. In order to get injunctive relief in any court, you need to satisfy 4 elements in the United States. Irreparable injury in the absence of the order granting the injunctive relief. That the balance of the equities, that the threatened injury injures the moving party more than it would harm the opposing party. That it is not adverse to the public interest, and the big one that is the threshold matter. Courts have said multiple times that if you have no likelihood of success on the merits, then you're not getting injunctive relief. So I don't know why that's down there at number 4. It should have been number 1. Like, likelihood of success on the merits is the big thing here. If you do not have likelihood of success on the merits, you're a dead man walking. So keep that in mind as we go through this document here, that this is the 4 things they're going to need to cover, and in this petition they need to show that they have a likelihood of success on the merits in order to get injunctive relief. Plaintiff brings this action to enjoin the vote at GameStop's July 7th, 2026 annual meeting. Wow, really cutting it close there, aren't we? Well, Delaware knows how to do expedited stuff, as we've learned, so maybe not too close. I would have filed sooner, to be honest, though. That's really, really cutting it close there, guys. On proposals 4 and 5, which together would award up to 35 billion. I don't know why I was trying to put a period in there. Maybe it's just I see 35 billion. It's just like it's absurd. Stock options to the company's CEO, defendant Ryan Cohen, and add 1.5 billion authorized shares to GameStop's certificate of incorporation. These two matters were originally to be decided in the case of the CEO compensation award by a disinterested majority of stockholders, and in the case of the authorized shares by a majority of the total voting stock of the company. Now, however, stockholders are told that GameStop CEO will be permitted to vote his 42,082,622 shares, which comprise 9.3% of the shares eligible to vote in favor of Proposal 4. Okay. And as of last week, they've been told that despite the requirements of the certificate of incorporation, the authorized share increase will pass if a simple majority of the votes cast are in favor of the amendment, with abstentions not counting. The vote standard applicable to the authorized share increase is found in the certificate and is represented in the proxy statement. The number of authorized shares may be increased by the affirmative vote of the holders of the majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote, generally in the election of directors, irrespective of the provisions of Section 242(b)(2) of the Delaware General Corporate Law or any corresponding provision henceforth. I think they emphasized the wrong part of that. Like, you may maybe emphasize the whole thing, but let's go there. Sorry, I gotta go find it now. There we go. This right here is going to be the big dealio. So as it said here, there is where it is in the actual charter. The number of authorized shares of any class or class of capital stock of the corporation may be increased or decreased, but not below the number of shares thereof then outstanding by the affirmative vote of the holders of a majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the general election of directors, irrespective of the provisions of Section 242(b)(2) of the Delaware General Corporate Law, or any corresponding provision henceforth enacted, effective upon filing of the Second Amendment of the recertified Certificate of Incorporation. So, yeah. That is the big thing here. Now, this is where we come back to this. So, what is that Section 2B, B2 exception? So, in Section 242 is basically how corporations can amend their charter. And it lays out the entire rules, you know, what you can change, how you change it, how the vote operates. And B2 is a very, the paragraph is kind of word choice, very legalese. It is a pain in the ass. The holders of the outstanding shares of the class shall be entitled to vote as a class upon a proposed amendment, whether or not entitled to a vote thereon by a certificate of incorporation. If the amendment would increase or decrease the aggregate number of authorized shares of such class, increase or decrease the par value of the shares in such class, alter or change the powers, preferences, or special rights of the shares of the class, you know, rights to dividends, what, you know, special voting powers they might have, things like that, as to affect them adversely, if any proposed amendment would alter or change the powers, preferences, special rights of one or more of the shares of any class, so as to affect them adversely, but shall not so affect the entire class, then only the shares of the series so affected by the amendment shall be considered a separate class for the purposes of this paragraph. The number of authorized shares of any such class or classes of stock may be increased or decreased, but not below the number of shares in the outstanding by the affirmative vote of the holders of the majority stock of the corporation entitled to vote, irrespective of this subsection, if so provided in the original certificate of corporation, in any amendment thereto which created such class or class of stock, or which as a point adopted prior to the issuance of any shares of such class or class of stock, or in any amendment thereto which is authorized by resolution or resolutions adopted by the affirmative vote of the holders of the majority of such class of stock. That is Section 242(b)(2). And it pretty much says, it locks in the whole thing that we're dealing with here. it pretty much says that regardless of how Section 242 changes, if there's any amendments or anything like that, it doesn't matter. This is what the rules are so long as it is explicitly written into the charter of a corporation, which in the case of GameStop, it's there. So you're locked into Section 242. Yeah. Because here it is what it copies basically that same wording where it says that the affirmative vote of the stockholders of the majority, not the majority of the ones voting, the majority of the voting power of the stock, the majority of the people able to vote. And that's irrespective of the provisions of Section 242b2 or any corresponding provision enacted afterwards. So, and then you go down to what Ryan Cohen and the board is trying to do, which is basically the new Section 242D here. And the key part is D2. An amendment to increase or decrease the authorized number of shares of a class of capital stock, or an amendment to reclassify by combining the issued shares of a class or capital stock to a lesser number of issued shares of the same class of stock may be made and effected without obtaining the vote or votes of stockholders otherwise required by subsection B of this section if A, the shares of such class are listed on national securities exchanges immediately before such amendment becomes effective and meet the listing requirements of the national securities exchange that it's on. Done. GameStop does that. B, at a meeting called in accordance with paragraph B1 of this section, a vote of the stockholders entitled to vote thereon, voting as a single class, is taken for or against the proposed amendment, and the votes cast for the amendment exceeds the votes cast against the amendment. And C, if the amendment increases or decreases the authorized numbers of shares in the class of the capital stock for which no provision has been made pursuant to the last sentence of paragraph B2 of this section, the votes cast for the amendment by the holders of such class exceeds the votes cast against the amendment by the holders of such class. So because that section 242b2 exists, then tough noogies on amending the charter when it comes to any of that. And the big problem here is if GameStop wanted to amend its charter to get rid of that section 242b2 provision, they'd have to do this is the catch-22. They would have to go and do the same vote. So they're stuck. They're stuck unless they can get over 51% of the people who own AMC stock to approve the amendment that gets rid of the section 242b2 exception. Which, again, back to the biggest problem with any retail stock. Like, people just don't participate. That is the big problem. People don't participate. So, you know, this the world Ryan Cohen lives in right now. The certificate thus ensures that anything other than a vote for this amendment will necessarily count against it. For that reason, the original proxy statement correctly noted that abstentions, if any, would have the same effect as a vote against the proposal, expressly reinforcing the company's intent to preserve the majority of outstanding shares standard for any future amendments, notwithstanding Section 242D2. Proposal 5 repeats the above quoted language and requests shareholders' approval of this voting standard going forward. Stockholders may not be so quick to hand over up to $35 billion in compensation for a new non-founder CEO whose business model and results have not been. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Cohen's results, but you can't deny that the company's actually profitable now under his guidance. I don't know if, like, I get they're trying to undercut his $35 billion compensation package. It's ridiculous. But, like, saying that is going to get you nowhere, because the company can simply point to its financials and say, "Bitch, say what?" I just would have gone with that. The pay is stupendously it's overkill. Like, even if Ryan Cohen has turned around the company, he doesn't deserve $35 billion because he hasn't given that much value to the company. Company's still like, what's the market cap currently at GameStop? $9.65 billion. Yeah. So like, it's just ridiculous. It like these numbers do not line up. Either way, the board invariably had a choice: tell their would-be superstar that that his wished-for compensation package is likely to fail, or change the voting rules unlawfully. They chose the latter. On June 7, 2026, the company issued a supplement to its proxy statement asserting that the approval of the authorized shares amendment, which is not a condition of the CEO performance award, requires the affirmative vote of a majority of the votes cast on the proposal at the annual meeting. Abstentions, if any, will not be treated as votes cast on the proposal, therefore will have no effect on the results of such vote. Like, we just went over it. The way that they have their charter set up, Section 242B2 pretty much clearly says that that's not allowed. I guarantee you absolutely GameStop will lose on this. They have to know. There's no way around it. Legally, it's like, this is not even something you need to go to trial on. This is simple. Like, this is something you could get summary judgment on. Like, it's clear-cut law, black and white. I think the compensation package thing is a little fuzzier. The statement is both false and unlawful for two reasons. First, it misstates the required vote on the authorized shares increase, which is not a majority of votes cast, but instead set forth in the certificate as the affirmative vote of the holders of the majority of the voting power of the stock of the corporation entitled to vote generally in the election of directors. Second, the June 7th supplement falsely states that abstentions will therefore have no effect on the results of such vote. In fact, abstentions should, and according to the certificate, must count as no votes. Yeah. GameStop's audacious attempt to reduce its power of its disinterested shareholders, in contrast to its prior public statements and in disregard of its certificate of incorporation, must stop. Cohen may want his $35 billion. That does not allow him and the board to disenfranchise stockholders and violate Delaware law along the way. Injunctive and equitable relief is warranted. And they'll go over the parties, basically going over each of the defendants and explaining how all of them are basically handpicked by Cohen and real close buddies with him, which is not a good look in a lawsuit like this. On January 7th, 2026, GameStop issued a press release announcing that the GameStop board had granted the CEO Performance Award to Ryan Cohen and the company's chief executive officer and executive chairman, subject to approval of the meeting of the company's stockholders. The total award consists of 171,537,327 shares of the company's Class A common stock, awarded in 9 tranches based on market capitalization and EBITDA, just like Elon Musk, and it is just as ridiculous and outrageous. According to the January 7th press release, the effectiveness of the CEO Performance Award was to be subject to the approval of GameStop's disinterested shareholders, who will be asked to approve it at a special meeting that is expected to be held on March or April 2026. That didn't happen. The January 7th press release unequivocally stated that the vote on the award would exclude Cohen's shares and that the unaffiliated stockholders would determine the outcome. Mr. Cohen will recuse himself from the vote on the award so that GameStop's other stockholders have the opportunity to determine the outcome. The CEO Compensation Award has a grant date fair value of $2.5 billion. If the various triggers in the award are achieved in the next 10 years, they'll pay out the rest of the $35 billion. We've got that background. The 2026 proxy statement is misleading and disenfranchises stockholders. The company and the board issued on May 22nd, 2026, a proxy statement for the annual shareholders meeting for July 7th, 2026. The CEO compensation award is no longer conditioned on a majority of the unaffiliated stockholders. As we already went over, they basically changed it over to where Cohen can vote his shares. It's not required on this one that all he needs is a simple majority to get it approved, so long as there's a quorum. Quorum requires the vote on the CEO compensation award is 50% of the total shares outstanding. Cohen holds. Wait, what? Quorum requirement. Okay, just a quorum. There needs to be at least 50% of the people voting. Okay. Yeah. The company is required with 50% of the present shareholders, not including Cohen shares that would have been required under the standard set. Oh. Are they trying to say that they don't think that they would have made quorum? I doubt that. See, my belief on the vote is for Cohen's compensation package is the votes are coming in no. Because it's ridiculous. You're a retail outlet, bro, and you want this outlandish compensation package like you're some tech bro from San Francisco? Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, and they don't explain in the proxy statement why they made the changes. It makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. Further fails to inform GameStop's unaffiliated shareholders that the vote was originally required to be a disinterested one, so that, as the press release stated, GameStop's other shareholders have an opportunity. Yeah. Other matters that lack clarity. Will Cohen be permitted to vote on Proposal 4, or will he recuse himself as originally presented publicly in the press release? If Cohen intends to recuse himself, why does the proxy statement require a bylaw vote for Proposal 4 to pass instead of a disinterested vote? Assuming Cohen intends to vote in favor of Proposal 4, when was that decision made to allow him to do so? Yeah, there's going to be some real big discovery into this, and it's going to be... I don't think it's going to look too good. I don't think it's going to look too good. Am I voting yes? I would have to have GameStop shares to vote yes. If I was a GameStop shareholder, I would vote no. Look, I was not a fan of Elon's compensation package. I'm even less a fan of Ryan Cohen getting the same type of compensation package. In fact, I don't understand this populist fervor for shareholders getting paid only in shares and saying that I don't take monetary compensation from the company. Dude, it shows there is no free lunch. It shows up on the balance sheet one way or the other. Either you have to issue out shares, which lowers the share prices and, damages shareholder value that way, or you take money off the balance sheet and the price goes down in accordance with the amount paid. And I guarantee you it will be cheaper for investors, and as I believe they bring up in this, it would be less of a burden on control of the company, because one of the disclosures they had to make was that this would pretty much make GameStop Ryan Cohen's company, and everyone else is just a mere obstacle to the path of whatever he wants to do, just like Elon Musk. So there's that problem. You're basically making the company wholly owned by your God Emperor CEO, which, I mean, I'm sure some people are pretty okay with that. But me, from a corporate governance standpoint, I'm not okay with that ever for any company. I know not a lot of people are big into ESG, and I'm kind of, I like corporate governance and corporate accountability. I'm not so big on the E or the S, but I definitely am very big on the G. Corporate governance is my bigly boo, and I don't like it when corporate executives exploit it at the expense of shareholders. And usually corporate pay packages are cheaper when it's just a cash payment with shares as a potential bonus structure. And it's less harmful to shareholders too. So, like, this whole populist bugly boo of he works for free except for the massive amount of share compensation he's about to dilute us with is like, and you know, I used to think that was a cool thing when Elon Musk, you know, when I first heard about it, but the more this goes on, the more it's just a way to exploit shareholders, and I'm just fucking sick of hearing about it. Was the reason for the change to the voting standard, and when was the decision made? Was the decision connected to the company abandoning its plans to present the $35 billion CEO compensation award vote at the special meeting in March or April? Yeah, what happened to that fucking special meeting? Was it because you guys weren't racking up the votes to get it to pass? Maybe. Just maybe. While much remains undisclosed about why the board abandoned its January 7 press release commitment to let the unaffiliated stockholders determine the outcome of the CEO compensation award, there's no doubt that by removing the condition and thus removing the power of the shareholders to speak at the award, the company is effectively lowering the incentive for discontent shareholders to bother with the cost and burden of blocking the award. As such, the 2026 proxy statement is misleading and omits material information that shareholders require in order to vote on Proposal 4. Yeah. I mean, if they made this change and then just, you know, didn't explain it and didn't go into the background of the board of directors' decision behind that and everything, yeah, that looks very sus and shady. So, yeah, I don't think that needs much explanation. Okay, so we're going to get to the Proposal 5 solicitation, and I think this one's a little more nuanced. And now that I realize that my mistake with the vote, so there's half of this that will likely be on summary judgment, and that's Section 242 claims, as I just said. It's pretty much cut and dry. Cohen's going to lose on that. The board's going to lose on that. GameStop's going to lose on that. The compensation package is probably going to go to trial, and it's going to be just as convoluted as it was with the Elon Musk. I still think he's going to lose on it, but there's a bigger chance there'll be some sort of settlement or something over that, especially considering we already know what happened in Tornado with Elon Musk. He lost, which is going to incentivize Ryan Cohen and the board to try and find some middle ground so they don't have to just have this drag out legal battle that they will probably lose. In part because of the enormity of the CEO compensation award, GameStop is separately proposing to approve an amendment to the charter to increase the number of authorized shares by 1.5 billion, more than doubling the number of authorized shares so they can try and buy eBay and absolutely fail at doing it. Whoopsies. Did I say that out loud? Which currently stands at 1 billion in common shares and 5 million in preferred shares. The voting standard to increase the number of authorized shares is found in the Certificate of Incorporation. We went over that already. The specific language of the proposed Certificate of Amendment is attached in Appendix B. Yep. Hey, there's the section that we just went over. It looks exactly the same. In light of the 2023 passage of Section 242D2, thank you, AMC. GameStop's decision in the 2026 proxy statement to continue to permit increases in the authorized number of shares only through a vote of the affirmative majority. Yeah, they had the opportunity to change it, and they didn't change it. And that's what they're going to use pretty much as why this horse crap. You had the chance to change to the new 242D2 rules, and you didn't. You left it as it was. It's affirmative majority cast votes. The 2026 proxy statement explains that although the company has enough shares currently to fulfill the operations to be awarded to the CEO compensation award, the authorized share increase is intended to maintain an appropriate level of authorized but unissued shares to operate the business. Thus, while not a condition of the CEO compensation award, a failure to increase the number of shares outstanding would make the CEO compensation award more value destructive. I don't know about value destructive, but it sure would make it a lot harder of a sell, because you would have all those shares locked up for the compensation that you couldn't issue as new equity to bring in cash for the company and things like that that might help operate the business better than, just handing it to Ryan Cohen. Upon information and belief, even after the stockholders were told that their disinterested vote concerning the CEO compensation award was no longer a condition to the effectiveness, as discussed above, Hey, how you doing, Manuel? Astute stockholders would have realized that the refusal to approve the authorized share increase could make the staggering value transfer in favor of Cohen infeasible. At this point, the board chose to violate the black letter Delaware law about the importance of the corporate certificate. And so they changed it to basically be just general vote. And then they kind of go over that. We'll get to the class action stuff here in a second. What are they asking for down here? I know it's 1 count breach of fiduciary duty for proposal 4. Yeah, and then so 2 counts breach of fiduciary duty. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we'll roll it back up here to class action, because we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, here's my 2 cents on the 242 claims. I think that GameStop is running into the same issue that Adam Aaron did. As I kind of alluded to previously, as I alluded to previously, like, retail shareholders don't vote. They just don't vote. And so it could very well be that the dilution proposal may pass under 242 D2. Enough people are wanting to do that. But that doesn't clear what GameStop's charter currently is set for. So because it has to be 50% of, it has to be a majority of the entire voting power of the company, it's not going to pass, because abstentions are as good as no votes, as it says. So that's the big problem. And if they can't get the shares, then they can't do the eBay deal, at least under Ryan Cohen's current deal plan. So that's dead in the water too. You see where this problem is kind of growing on itself. And as I said prior, because it's an amendment to the charter, you run into the same catch-22 if you want to change from, 242 B2 to 242 D2, B2 D2, because you need, in order to transfer from one to the other, you have to have 50% of the entire voting. You got to have a majority of the, voting power of the company, not a majority of voters, a majority of the voting power of the company. And you're a retail company, so best of luck to you on that one. Maybe you can get some of the what is GameStop's let's see if we can get a breakdown of their ownership. So 44% institutional ownership. Well, shit, they shouldn't be having that much of a problem. It's not like AMC where it's almost universally retail owned. What's the big malfunction here, guys? take a look at this here. So GameStop is 44% institutionally owned. So you're telling me you can't find 5.5% retail voters to vote on this thing to get to well, I mean, that assumes the institutional owners are voting in favor of it. But like, okay, so like, how are you not getting over the? What are the chances of a Korax versus Moranch cage match, metaphorically speaking? Unlikely. I'll take a debate if he learns not to be a bigly bitch. 44.6%. Like, okay, so maybe this isn't even the AMC problem, because I'm sitting here looking at this and I don't know why they can't get the votes. So institutional ownership of 44.6%. Cohen owns 9%. That should easily be enough to get over the threshold if all of them are voting yes, which tells me that there's a lot voting no. I mean, maybe it isn't a problem of retail's not voting. Maybe it's just there's just not enough support for even, which might explain why Allegheny's coming in here and being like, look, they're trying to change the rules at the last minute. But that's wild. That's way different than I thought the situation was now that I look at it a little deeper. Which is why I like doing these live streams. Just, it's not just me helping explain things. It's some of this stuff. That's weird. I'll have to play with that in my head a little bit, because I sincerely thought it was an AMC type issue where, you know, the majority of shareholders are retail and retail just doesn't vote. But between institutional investors and Ryan Cohen, if they were all voting yes, you have enough votes. So a good majority of them aren't voting yes or not voting at all. Well, I mean, no, institutional voters are kind of fiduciary required to. Then why would 242D2 change it to 242D2 really? I hope they get some discovery on that, because I really want to know what the vote is looking like there for that share authorization increase, because that's interesting. Huh. Anyway. I have some stuff that are in my bookmarks here that we're going to kind of go over. As some of you may know, I'm not Liz Morton's biggest fucking fan, and I think she's a grifter piece of shit, but when this dropped, she called it a proposed class action, and a lot of people ran with that. Oh, it's just a proposed class action. And then she kind of screen capped an article that she linked to. Let's go over this, because I want to, like, if you spent the time reading, getting, oh my god, go away. I hate that every website has about 40 bazillion pop-ups now of useless shit. Class action lawsuit, not every class. Like, this is just general class action. Typicality, yeah. Commonality, numerosity, yeah. We're gonna go over all that. Ascertainability, yeah. Basically, I love it when people who have no clue about how class actions operate want to, like, use this term like proposed. Like, first of all, even if it is a proposed class action, there's nothing stopping going forward as an individual claim. So, like, trying to weasel word the lawsuit by calling it a proposed class action is kind of a shitty maneuver. But in this case, I really don't think it matters, because, like, the fact that the class is so numerous that the joinder of all the members is impracticable. Yeah, because you got the class, the Rule 23 is federal and Delaware rules for class actions. So yeah, we know that. There are questions of law and fact in common in the case, and that's where they start breaking down the whole numerosity, which is the first part there, that there's so many of them. Commonality is the second point there, which, duh, all these people are shareholders affected by Proposal 4 and 5. So commonality, check mark. Typicality, the person who is bringing the class action lawsuit has to be typical of the other members of the class. And I mean, they're a shareholder. In shareholder class actions, it has to be a really weird situation for typicality not to apply. Case in point, when Genius Group tried to bring about the genius idea of being a lead plaintiff for its own shareholders in its own company, and of course struck that down because the company issuing shares is not typical of other class members that, you know, own the shares for other reasons. It's why you see a lot of these like funds, like, you know, the Pontiac, you know, city retirement fund, or Allegheny County retirement fund. These like retirement pension fund groups or things like that doing these because they've got a lot of shares. They're going to meet the class action requirements for typicality and all these other things. They can hire lawyers that actually have experience, which is going to lead to the adequacy, which is point 3 here, that the representative parties will fairly and adequately protect the interests of the class. Number 4. Again, that's why you get these pension funds doing it, because they're going to be just as interested as any other shareholder, and they're going to act and fight on the benefit of the class. Because they have a fiduciary duty to do so to the people in the fund that they operate, and they can get a lawyer that can fairly represent the claims and has class action experience. Now, it should be clear that courts are told not to just rubber stamp going through all 4 of these prerequisites for Rule 23. But calling it a proposed class action, while technically accurate, is poisoning the well, because it is so obviously clear that the Pontiac City Retirement Fund meets the requirements on all 4 counts. I don't know what you want there. You're just being silly if you're trying to just weasel word it, which I believe Liz is in every instance, and that she's just doesn't argue in good faith about any of this stuff dealing with the eBay deal, like, ever. Because her utility to the GameStop community is based around being a sycophant. Another one here. GameStop shorts must be really cooked. Actually, here might be the ones really cooked, because it looks like this eBay deal's kind of dead. Oh, yes. Of course, we couldn't get far without fucking Michael sticking his shitty nose into everything. Remember, kids, suing when Democrat is very bad. You shouldn't do it. It makes soy boy QAnon people like Michael cry into their Trump waifu pillows at night. Fuck me. Like, leave it to these actual fucking losers to turn this into some sort of political thing. And I love on this one that he tries to say down here that this lawsuit is not about supporting or opposing Ryan Cohen personally. It's about the use of shareholder capital and corporate governance. Yeah, that is indeed what this lawsuit is about, and that's should be a good thing. I don't know why you all think it's a bad thing. Also, gotta love the AI slop here of getting the fucking date wrong down here. And then, of course, skate pick. Gotta love when they also cherry pick from the legal law, the legal papers without reading the adjoining paragraph. They're complaining about the pay package, which, in fact, is an options pay package. That means Ryan Cohen will have to buy the shares, but he can just buy. He could just use the money he gets from the exercise of the options to pay down, so he doesn't actually owe anything to the company. They just subtract it out of. It's like this. It's this level of sycophantic stupid that is just mind numbing to me. Well, I think that was just because I kind of agreed with it. All the 10 surrounding GameStop is to fill the massive void left by the lack of communication from the company. Fucking men. Of course, Michael proving that he's a racist again. Did you know that Tim Grimmel likes the blacks? Man, that's just so fucking awful that he likes the blacks. Then, of course, you got this for guys basically saying that they dismissed a lot of their lawsuits. And if you open up this one, you actually find out that it was voluntarily dismissed, which is another nice legal word for we settled this. So long as it isn't a class action, you can just settle. What kind of lawsuit was this? New Zealand rugby team? I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah. A lot of voluntary dismissals are settlements. But yeah. I think that covers most of the crazy stuff that I was seeing. Oh yeah. Apparently eBay's proposal for the blacks. I hope not. Or in this case, maybe I do hope that he's talking about a New Zealand rugby team rather than. Oh. Anyway. So apparently, Proposal 4 passed at the annual eBay shareholder meeting. Again, like, even if Ryan Cohen could try and force the issue, Google it. Do I really want to, though? Do I really want to? Proposal 4 did pass. Is the indication coming out of the shareholders meeting. Again, if this all gets held up, that's not going to matter too much. Because, again, if Ryan Cohen doesn't get the shares to be able to do the deal the way he has designed it, then it's kind of over. Here we go. Let me see if I can find out if they filed a motion for injunctive relief, because why would you ask for it and then not try to get injunctive relief? That really is weird to me. Courts. State Court. Delaware. Actually, I'll move this back over here because I'm going to want to Macy. Hey, I do know how to spell things occasionally. Okay, let's see here. Oh, it did the stupid thing. All right, so I'm going to let you know a secret little trick here. Docket alarm is usually what I use for Delaware lawsuits to look them up. But they want to also charge you an arm and a leg. But the way that they had their thing set up is based on cookies as to detecting if you have accessed their site too many times to trigger the whoops, you need to pay. So what I do is I open an incognito tab and then I open it up to see what all documents, summons, instructions. Oh, hey, here is all the stuff. Oh my goodness, here is all the stuff. All of the stuff. Oh my goodness. Look at that. That was missing that I was wondering was there. Hey, we might actually get to go over some interesting things. Let me do a new window capture. Ooh, window capture. Yeah. And I want to do this. Whee! And I also want this down here. I didn't want you to move. I want to move this. Hey! I was wondering where the rest of these documents were. And sure enough, Bloomberg didn't produce them for us. So there's the motion to expedite. Hello, I'll take that. Motion for temporary restraining order. Hello, let's talk about some things. Oh, why didn't it do that? Can I download? Oh, I must sign in to view it. Well, that's dumb. I must sign in to view those documents. Well, that sucks. At least we know they exist. So they want to expedite this. No kidding. I'm not surprised. Yeah, it's not going to let me download it. Well, shit. Well, we do know at least that those are in there. I was wondering about that when I couldn't. Let me see if I can try tricking it again. Copy. We'll close this. Then we'll reopen. New incognito tab. Maybe they'll let us see them later. See if I can do this. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. Oh no! Yeah! I found the workaround, boys! We're eating good tonight! Alright, so 1 second here. We're going to download this. Or can you guys read that? We'll just roll with that. No, actually, I don't need to download you. That's only going to make this computer work harder, and it's not wanting to do that tonight. All right. Ha! 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 Breaking news. I've got shit no one else has for like 5 seconds before everyone uses the cheat code I just did. All right, so that was the temporary restraining order. Let's see if we can get the motion to expedite. Yeah. Big money, no whammies. 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 Stop! Come on! Give it to me! Let's do this! Ah! Boo! Okay, I ran out of pages, so we'll come back. We know how to jerry-rig this. We're going to read the temporary restraining order, which is probably going to tell you stuff that I already told you, but let's do this, and we'll see if we can come back and get the other document. We'll have breaking news that no one else covering this GameStop stuff has been doing. Look at us. More reasons to subscribe. I know how to sneakily get court documents. Emergency motion for a temporary restraining order. Plaintiff, the city of Pontiac, reestablished general employee retirement system, respectfully moves for an expedited proceeding. Why is this labeled temporary restraining order if it's 2 pages and you're going for expedited? This is the motion for expedited proceeding then, isn't it then? Expedited proceeding in connection with plaintiff's emergency motion for a temporary restraining order in order to seek and join defendants from holding and certifying the given effect in the votes of proposal 4 and 5 at GameStop Corp. July 7, 2026 annual meeting unless and until defendants make corrective disclosures regarding the CEO compensation award and confirm the voting standards for the authorized share increase to the certificate. The grounds for this request are set forth in plaintiff's accompanying opening brief and the supplemental to its motion to expedite proceedings. Boo! Okay, so we got to go back and get the motion to expedite. Well, we already know how to do this hat trick, so goodbye. That'll clear all of our cookies. Open new incognito window. Then we want the motion to expedite. Full document. I believe in you. I believe in you. Come on. Let us see the motion to expedite. Come on. Make it happen. It's really thinking about it. It's really thinking about it. Come on. Come on. Ah! Nope. Nope. Oh! Hey! 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 There we go! Yeah! There we go. Plaintiff's motion to expedite. Ding, 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 ding. I manifested it, all right. Plaintiff's motion to expedite proceedings. Introduction. This action seeks to vindicate the most basic right of GameStop shareholders to cast an informed and properly counted vote at the company's July 7, 2026 annual meeting. 2 of the proposals on the ballot at July 7th meeting are extraordinary. The GameStop board of directors is misrepresenting and omitting key facts of Proposal 4 while violating the company's certificate by soliciting an unlawful low voting standard for Proposal 5. First, I love when lawyers get cheeky and put Proposal 4. I mean, it's to identify it, but it also seems very cheeky when they didn't use Proposal 4 and 5 under quotes here, basically suggesting that the purported Proposal 4, let me use all the scare quotes, So cheeky. I love when lawyers do that. Would approve the performance-based stock option award to the CEO and executive chairman, defendant Ryan Cohen, carrying a grant date, fair value of approximately $2.5 billion and a potential realizable value of $35 billion. Second proposal, okay, so they're just telling us what this is. In the weeks before the vote, the company and its board took steps to strip the disinterested stockholders of the power to oppose the proposal. Yeah, this is all the lead-in that we already knew. And we already know the factual background. Thank you. Can we get to the argument? Because I'm pretty sure it's going to be the argument that I said. But I like it when they break down the 4 elements of argument. Standard to expedite. I like this because I've never really had discussions about the standard to expedite. Like, I have had discussions about, injunctive relief, which they'll go over it here, but real quickly as a refresher, likelihood of success on the merits. On the executive pay package, I think they probably have, Tornado won. And they aren't even really saying that they don't want the pay package. They're just saying that they want the reasoning because the board of directors has been hiding the reasoning, and that's a breach of fiduciary duty. So, we don't really have to get into Tornado questions yet unless they want to pursue further and go after, the compensation package is unjust. They just want to know how the board came to changing what the voting parameters were going to be in the proxy statement. So I that's an even lower bar. So yes, on both their first and second breach of fiduciary duty, yeah, I definitely believe they have likelihood of success on the merits. Me personally, as a non-lawyer, believe that they have likelihood of success on the merits. I think legally they definitely have likelihood of success on the merits on the 242 claims. Let's see here. Irreparable injury absent such order. Yeah. Especially on the granting of the shares, that the high we've talked about the dilution before on this channel and the amount of dilution that would be. So absolutely there would be irreparable harm, especially if the deal with eBay went through. They would become a minority shareholder in a company that they were an active participant in. They would become subservient to eBay shareholders when the companies are combined, based on the current deal that Ryan Cohen is proffering. So yeah, I would definitely say, at least in the instance of Proposal 5, there's a definite risk of irreparable harm, and then of course the pay package. You could definitely say giving Ryan Cohen billions upon billions of dollars of company assets, in shares and monetary compensity, could have irreparable harm. I think it'd be a little harder to sell there. You'd have to explain, if you'd have to get into kind of the muddy Tornado things, I think there. But I think since they're not doing that and they're just asking for disclosures, and the disclosures would weigh heavily on how people would vote, I would say that since you're not getting to Tornado arguments yet, you're wanting disclosures, and that the board has breached their fiduciary duty because they have not made these disclosures in order to make an appropriate vote, an informed vote as a shareholder. Then yeah, that if the vote went forward without those disclosures, that would be irreparable harm, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so take that for what it's worth, but I don't see how that wouldn't be irreparable harm. That the injury to the moving party outweighs the harm to the non-moving party, yeah, absolutely, especially on Proposal 4. Since we're not even getting to Tornado things, we're not even denying Ryan Cohen his pay package. We're just saying we want the information to be able to have an informed vote. I don't think that's unreasonable. Especially since Ryan Cohen's gone 5 years so far without getting paid. Yeah, so I think we're good there on that. And the injunction is not adverse to the public interest or promotes the general public interest. Yeah, I mean, especially since it's a class action that's purportedly trying to help shareholders. Yeah, I think that pretty much clears that fourth point pretty easily. So yeah, that's just me. I'm sure they'll have their own arguments for an injunctive reasons why they should get injunctive relief, but I think they clear all four of those just fine. Boop. Let's go back to their arguments. The standard for expedition, is low and readily satisfied. Delaware courts have broad discretion to expedite and exercise it freely. Yeah, well, most courts in general, not just Delaware ones, usually give a lot of broad discretion on a lot of issues to the presiding judge or court over it. Delaware courts are always receptive to expediting any type of litigation in the interest of affording justice to the parties. To obtain expedited proceedings, the court merely needs to find that the plaintiffs have articulated a successfully colorable claim and shown a significant possibility of a threatened irreparable injury. Well, I think that's pretty clear here. We got a shareholder vote coming up really soon, and yeah, we've as we've established, there is irreparable harm potentially. So yeah, if that's the standard, I think we got there. The court need not pass the ultimate likelihood of success on the claims to grant expedition. Instead, it accepts as true the well-pleaded factual allegations in the complaint. A colorable claim is essentially a non-frivolous cause of action, a threshold even lower than the conceivable standard applied on a motion to dismiss. That's pretty funny. The burden on the plaintiff the burden on the plaintiff in seeking an expedited proceeding is not high, and a plaintiff need not prevail on every claim, for if one of the claims is met, the standard to expedite proceedings may be granted. Plaintiff clears this bar comfortably as to both proposals. I'd agree. And to be honest, I don't think GameStop will be opposed with this being expedited, because if it gets expedited, it means that if they're going to win on any of these issues, which I don't think they will, it gets that out of the way so they can get to whatever they were wanting to do anyway, or whatever remedies they want to do. So I don't even think GameStop's going to, or at least I wouldn't, try and stop this motion to expedite part of it, because yeah, sure, let's get this moving as fast as possible. We got a shareholder vote coming up. Let's get this over with, please. Plaintiff has asserted colorable claims. Proposal 4, the Proposal 4 disclosure claim is colorable. Delaware fiduciaries must disclose fully and fairly all material information when seeking stockholder action, and a board that speaks must not convey a misleading partial picture. Here, the company publicly promised that Cohen would recuse himself so that GameStop's other stockholders have an opportunity to determine the outcome, then abandoned that promise in the proxy without explaining how, when, why, or by whom the change was made. Those omissions and the undisclosed reasons for these changes in process are highly material. I'd agree, because it's going to get into just showing how greasy this board of directors probably is. Like shades of Tesla shit. Proposal 4 charter abstention claim is also colorable. The certificate and the operating text of Proposal 4's the Proposal 4 amendment itself requires approval by a majority of the voting power of the voting stock, a majority of outstanding standard under which abstentions count as votes against. The supplement's votes cast instruction contradicts the standard while disclaiming any change to the proposal, and Section 222D's vote cast default governs only unless otherwise expressly required by the Certificate of Incorporation. That the company is readopting the majority of the outstanding standard now, post Section 242D only confirms the point. Plaintiff does not restate the full merits here. They are set out in plaintiff's contemporary filed opening brief in support of its motion for a temporary restraining order. Oh, there's a brief for the temporary restraining order? Oh, right there. So we need to go back and get that. So that was just the motion to expedite. We're going to have to do our trick again to get that last document, aren't we? Plaintiff's facts are sufficient. Yeah, I don't think I need to read much more here. I'm pretty sure they get the motion to expedite, and I doubt it'll be contested. Defendants will suffer no prejudice from expedition. Yeah. And I think, in fact, they'll want it to be expedited. So that way, sooner they can get to the vote that they want to do. You know, sans what the court will tell them they need to do to fix it. All right. Let's see if I need to refresh or if we can pull one last jerry rig to get the temporary restraining order. Trick is you got to get up onto the... Sometimes it's... There we go. Let's see if we can get this full document. Please, pretty please. If not, we'll just close out and refresh the page, and we know that we can grab it again. Come on. You know you want to give it to me. Darn. That's okay. I'll just come back and do it again. And remember, you kids can do this at home so long as you have Google in incognito mode. Come on, give it to me. I was thinking really hard about it this time. That's how you know you're going to get it. Come on. Yeah! I'm so glad my shitty party tricks from 3 years ago still work. Oh, boo. Oh, man, and we don't even have... We don't have rubbing my axe over there to try and take out that. Excuse me while I go over to Twitch and try and take out that freaking bot. Get them banned. I don't have Twitch loaded on my phone. For reals? For reals? Let me see. For sure. There it is. Anyway, yes, I'm well aware that I'm cheating your shitty little system. Think better next time. Plaintiff's opening brief in support of emergency motion for a temporary restraining order. You get away with it this time, AI bot, because I'm away from my desktop and can't really deal with you. Ooh, we get some citations. Awesome. Stuff we'll have to go look at later, maybe. Yeah, we're going to roll over... Actually, we'll read the first part of this. And then we'll skip over the background that we've already heard. This emergency motion presents a narrow and time-sensitive question whether GameStop Corp. Or the company may hold a July 7, 2026 shareholder vote on its two consequential proposals after misleading its shareholders about one and rewriting the charter-mandated voting rules for the other. The answer should be an unequivocal no. A temporary restraining order is needed to preserve the status quo. Haha, they're going to go for a status quo order. Which means that are they going to get that ex parte then, maybe? Or are we going to get some limited hearing on that and get the status quo order slapped? Remember, AMC got its status quo order slapped on it pretty quickly. So they want an SQO. Alrighty. That makes sense. Especially since they asked for an expedited hearing. A temporary restraining order is needed. Oops, where was I? Temporary restraining order is needed to preserve the status quo until the defects are cured. It is the prerogative of GameStop's board of directors to enrich the company's CEO. It is not their prerogative to manipulate. Okay, it's not their. I just don't agree with that sentence. It just reads a real weird, and I wouldn't have put it in there. It is. I would say it is the prerogative of GameStop's board of directors to compensate the CEO. I wouldn't have used that language. That was a choice. It is not their prerogative to manipulate the shareholder franchise in their quest to enrich him. Agreed. Two proposals at the July 7th ballot are at issue. Proposal 4 and 5. Yeah, we know. We already know the factual background. Yeah, we read that. Thank you. We read that on your complaint in your past two motions. Of course, they're signing back to the complaint. Statement. Argument. Standard of review. A TRO is a special remedy of short duration designed to protect the status quo and to prevent imminent and irreparable harm from occurring pending a preliminary injunction or final resolution of the matter. A temporary restraining order may be issued when the movement demonstrates that it has a colorable claim, faces likelihood of imminent and irreparable harm if relief is not granted, will suffer greater hardship if the TRO is not granted than defendants would if the relief was not granted. If imminent irreparable harm exists, the remedy ought ordinarily to issue unless the claim is frivolous. Granting the remedy would cause greater harm than denying it, or the plaintiff has contributed in some way to the emergency nature or the need for relief. The proxy statement materially misleads stockholders about the abandoned disinterested vote, so they have colorable claims because of that, which we already know. The supplement adopts a voting standard. Yep, that's the other one. We already know that. Kind of want to see how it's trying to color the other arguments. Plaintiff faces a likelihood of imminent irreparable harm. To show irreparable harm, a plaintiff must demonstrate the harm for which he or she has no adequate remedy at law. The threatened harm here is quintessential irreparable injury this court acts to present. The threat of an uninformed stockholder vote constitutes irreparable harm. Roston OL LLC, Dynegy Holdings, 2011. Delaware Chancery, July 29th, 2011. I always like Delaware lawyers because you'll see in federal courts that, they'll jam their citations in the main body, and I hate that because it breaks up the flow of what you're reading. Yeah, sometimes, you'll take out the quote there when it's applicable, but I always like how clean it is. You don't put the citation directly after the quote and just break the flow of your argument. You put a footnote like any sane human being and stuff the citation down here like you would if you were reading a book. A disclosure violation threatens irreparable harm because stockholders may vote yes on a transaction they would have otherwise voted no on. For that reason, it is appropriate for the court to address material disclosure problems through the issuance of a preliminary injunction until the problems are corrected, rather than leave stockholders to a after-the-fact damages remedy that would force the court to engage in an imprecise and ineffective method by which to remedy disclosure deficiencies. Remember, a classic, like all classic cases of irreparable harm, is when you're going to take some type of injury that can't be fixed by money. Money damages can never be irreparable harm, and in this case, going back in time and fixing the fact that proper disclosures weren't given is something that is a classic case of irreparable harm, because how are you supposed to remedy that after the fact? Do you redo the vote? Like, after it's already passed, do you try and retcon the vote and everything like that? I mean, like they said, it depends on the situation. It can be precise or imprecise, and it's better to just fix it ahead of time rather than going back in time and trying to fix it. Whereas here, the claim is a disclosure claim, the path to show irreparable harm is easier than when seeking to expedite substantive claims, because the right to cast an informed vote can only be truly remedied by a specific injunctive order maintaining that the appropriate disclosure before the shareholders are required to vote. The injuries here are both imminent and irreversible. Once the July 7th vote occurs, the CEO compensation award approved on a proxy that conceals the abandonment of the promised disinterested vote would take effect on the strength of a tainted mandate, and the authorized share increase would be carried under a votes cast standard the certificate does not allow, purporting to authorize 1.5 billion new shares in violation of the charter. A deprivation of the corporate governance process may constitute irreparable harm. The harm is also of the unscramble the eggs variety. Unscramble the eggs variety. Where are they getting that quote from? Gimbal v. Signal Costs, 316A 2D 599, 603 to 604. Delaware Court Chancery 1974. Well, that explains a lot for that wonderful analogy straight out of the 70s. Once the votes are cast and the new shares authorized, it may be impossible to unscramble the eggs after the fact. Yep. The risk here is heightened because approval would authorize the issuance of shares that could not trade in the public market in a manner that cannot be practically traced, altering the company's capital structure in a way that could not be unwound. Yep. If they start issuing shares based on this faulty authorization, there's really no way to fix that at that point, is there? With the meeting days away, the threat is imminent and concrete. Balance of the equities is in favor of the plaintiffs. The final question is whether the harm to the plaintiffs, if relief is denied, outweighs the harm to the defendants if the injunction is granted. In other words, whether the risk of an improvidently granted order outweighs the risk of denying the application. The balance tips sharply towards plaintiff and the class. The relief sought is modest and self-limiting. Corrective disclosures on Proposal 4 and adherence to the certificate's existing vote standard on Proposal 5. A brief delay or a supplemental mailing at most. To the extent an evidentiary record is required, plaintiff is prepared to exchange in expedited discovery after the TRO is issued and in advance of the expedited preliminary injunction hearing. Defendants have no cognizable interest in proceeding otherwise. There is no legitimate hardship in being required to disclose material facts the company itself put in issue, and none in being held to voting standards its own charter prescribes. True facts. True facts. The board first planned to do so at a special meeting in March and then letting the matter slide to the upcoming annual meeting. By contrast, denying relief would permit a vote on a $35 billion award and a doubling of the company's authorized shares to proceed on a misleading record and under an unlawful counting rule. temporary restraining order would do no more than preserve the status quo, a vote not yet taken until these defects are cured. Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm glad we found those, because I was really wondering where that had all disappeared to and why that was not produced, but now we know it's there, and I assume it'd be really hard to get a turnaround on that immediately. Let's see what the calendar is. The vote's the 7th. So that's like less than 3 weeks away. I bet, if I had to guess, they're probably going to put this issue on the docket next week sometime. It depends how long it would take to get notice. I mean, so probably, I'd say at least by Friday of next week, we might hear something about what they're going to do with this TRO. Hopefully sooner, since it's expedited, but yeah. Maybe see something next week, but definitely it'd have to be next week at the latest. I mean, not next week, but the week after that, the week of the 29th at the latest, because the week following that would be the shareholder meeting. So late next week, I'd say Thursday or Friday. Maybe we'll hear something about where this is going. But thank you all for hanging out. It was lovely. Got to go over these documents. Got to go to see some of the documents no one has bothered to go try and track down yet, amazingly. Fun times. If you weren't here at the beginning of the live stream, got the normal Saturday show. We'll hopefully be having our oil and gas crew on to talk about Brent Franklin and get caught up on some of the stuff, because we've been passively covering some of the stuff dealing with him over the past couple weeks as it's filtered in, but we haven't really gotten to dig down with some of the people who've been doing a lot of the research on that. So hopefully we'll have them on next Saturday. We'll get a chance to chat with them, look over it and everything, and it should be fun. It should be fun, and we hope to see you then. But for now, I am going to disappear for the night. I might have a live stream in between now and Saturday. It really depends how I'm feeling, because I'm off Friday. It'll probably be, if there is a live stream, just a gaming night live stream, play some video games, have some fun. But we'll see you next time.